Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. So I wanted to do another really fun summary vector illustration because the watercolor popsicle tutorial did so well and a lot of people said I want more tutorials like this. So here I am delivering this week, and we're going to create these really fun paint streak textured surfboards, and we're going to be using these paint streak textures that I actually created this past weekend. There's 55 of them that I'm kind of choosing from as I go through this tutorial, and I'll show you what they look like. So I'll leave a link if you want to check out this full kit, and I'm actually giving away 2 of these for free over on my blog, every-tuesday.com. So definitely head over there and pick those up if you're interested, and you'll be able to use those and follow along with this tutorial. So there's a bunch of different ones. There's 35 abstract shape textures, there's 15 circle textures, 5 wave shape textures, and then here's some sample applications just to check out, just to show that you can use these textures on a lot of different things just to add a little more personality and fun, and they can even look super modern too. You can use them on art prints, any type of social media or web banners, product tags. You can even add them to photography to get some really cool effects. But this week we're going to be creating surfboards. So I've got 3 or 5 different levels kind of to go off of here. We've got one that fills up the entire surfboard, so that's the most basic one. Then we've got one where there's color underneath the texture, and I'll explain how to do that. This one is split in 2, this one is split in 3, and then this one has 3 different shapes, but they act as one on the surfboard. So I'll show you how to do them all, and it'll be very, very easy and hopefully pretty quick too. So we're going to get right into drawing a surfboard in Illustrator. So I'm just going to come over here and grab my ellipse tool, and I'm just freehanding the shape. You can go any length. There are a ton of different shaped surfboards, and I've never surfed before, so I really apologize for my ignorance on this. I tried to get myself a little schooled before I made this. So there's a bunch of different shapes, but these ones seem to be the most common, so that's why I'm using these 2 shapes. And the only difference is one's flat bottomed, and then the other 2 kind of have notches in the bottom. So we'll do this flat bottom one first. So once you have your ellipse tool, I'm just dragging out. I'm not holding any keys or anything. I'm just dragging it out, and then I'm releasing. And I'll just throw this one down here. And as you can see, we've got this flat bottom, but we've actually got a little bit of a curve right here, so it's a softer edge. So I'm going to be using the rounded rectangle tool for that, and if I double click, I'll show you my corner radius is set at 0.035 inches. If you want to use the same settings, just ignore this width and height because we're just going to draw our own. So that's the corner radius setting I'm using, and I'm just going to zoom in here. And the way that I got that flat bottom on those is I just pick a position down here. It doesn't really matter where you choose. So this looks fine to me. So I'm just going to drag this out, and then I'm going to make sure it crosses the other edge so it's kind of similar over here. So once I have that drawn, I'm going to rubber band select both of these, go to my Pathfinder palette, and if you don't see this over here, you can get to it by going Window, Pathfinder, and I'm just going to click on this Unite icon right here. Now these become one shape, but obviously we have these really ugly notches right here that we don't need, so I'm going to get rid of them, and I can do that by hitting the hyphen key on my keyboard, and that activates my anchor point delete tool, and I'm just going to come over here and delete these anchor points. So just like that, we've got a flat bottom with a nice soft edge, and if I zoom out, you can see it's really coming along. You could use this shape as your surfboard if you wanted to, but for ours, we're going to have this pointier tip. So all I need to do is come over here with it selected. You can see I've got, if I hit A on my keyboard, that activates my direct select tool. And if I click on this top anchor point, all of a sudden you'll see I've got 2 handles right here. And handles control how much of a curve your line has. So if we remove the handles, then our line won't have any curve to it. So all I'm going to do is click on this node and then drag it to the point and then release. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And now I've got a point. There we go. There's our first surfboard. So now we're just going to create one that has a notch in it. So I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm just going to hold Alt on my keyboard, drag, and as I'm dragging, I'm holding Shift so it stays straight. I'm going to zoom in down here, And with this selected, you can see there's a bounding box that comes around it. And the bounding box has nodes on all 4 corners, but it also has nodes in the center points between corners. So this is the center line within the shape, so it's actually the center point on this bottom line as well. So if I hover right over that point, this is kind of a little cheat. If I hover over that point and then I hit the plus key on my keyboard, that activates my add anchor point tool, and all I have to do is click, and now I've just added a point to the very center of that, and I didn't have to do any math, which is even better. So I'm gonna hit A on my keyboard to activate my direct select tool again. I'm gonna click on that point, and then all I'm gonna do is tap my up arrow key on my keyboard, and that bumps it up. And I still retain those soft edges in the corners. So as you can see, if I zoom out here, it's looking pretty good. So these are going to be my base shapes for everything. So I'm going to keep these off to the side, so I've got them here to make copies of whenever I need them. So to start things off, we're going to use this flat bottom one. So I'm just going to hold Alt. As I'm dragging, I'm going to hold Shift to keep things straight. And now we're just going to replicate this one completely. So what we need is this paint streak texture right here, which we're going to apply a clipping mask to mask it inside of this shape. So let me see what number this is. This is number 32 in the set. So I'm just going to place that in there, File, Place, grab number 32. And this is really large. I made all these textures really big so you can use them on a bunch of different things really easily and you won't lose quality. So the longest side is always a minimum at least 2000 pixels. So I'm going to rotate this around. And then the important thing to know is whenever you're masking a texture inside of a shape, you always want that shape on top of the texture before you apply a clipping mask. So right now I've got the texture on top of the shape, so I need to send it to the back. So you can send it to the back. I usually use a keyboard shortcut, which I'm going to show you, but for right now you can also right click, arrange, and send to back. So this is the shortcut that I use. It's Shift, Command, and then the open bracket key. Or if you're on a PC, you can hold Shift, Control, and the open bracket key. So wherever the Command key is, just replace it with Control. Okay, so I'm going to select that there, but for the rest of this tutorial, I'm just going to use that keyboard shortcut so we don't get too redundant. Okay, so now let me change the color so you can see the shape right here. Okay, so here's my shape. So I want to make sure that my texture has some variation in color showing up where it's going to be masked inside the shape. And once I'm happy with where it's placed, all I have to do is select both of them, right click, make clipping mask, and there we go. And that actually looks really pretty. It's better than my first one. But if I wasn't happy with the position of the streaks right here, all I have to do is hit A on my keyboard, click, and then hit V on my keyboard, and then I can move this wherever I want it and change the position. I can even rescale it if I wanted. Okay, so this next one is a little more complicated, but not too difficult. I'm going to make a copy. Again, I'm holding Alt, and then as I'm dragging, I'm holding Shift. So let me make this the right color for this one. All right, so what we have here is our texture is lying on top of a colored shape. So the thing to remember here is whenever you create a clipping mask, when the texture is masked inside of a shape, that shape becomes filled with the texture, so it no longer has color. So if you want color behind your texture, you need an additional shape that's just filled with that color. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to bring in this texture. It's number 12. File, Place. I'm going to grab number 12. Shrink it down again. All right, so now I'm going to rotate this at an angle like the example. Probably needs to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to send this texture to the back once again, but if I just mask it from here, you'll see I lose all of this, and this needs to be a color. So I'm going to back up one, and I'm going to make a copy of this shape. So I'm going to hit Command-C on a Mac or Control-C on a PC to copy, and then Command-V or Control-V, or I'm sorry, Command-F or Control-F on a PC to paste in front. Because if you just paste it, it would show up somewhere else, and we want to paste it directly on front of our other shape. So we actually have two of these surfboard green shapes on top of one another, But if I just click on one, only one of them is selected now. So I'm going to hold Shift and select the texture, make clipping mask. And now you can see if I separate these, this one is filled, this shape is filled only with the texture, and this shape is filled with the color. So when I put the two together, now they look like they're one. Okay, so the next one, just gonna make a copy again, and as you can see, it's split down the center. And all we have to do, this one's really easy actually. I'm just gonna I'm on my keyboard to activate my rectangle tool. And I'm gonna hover over, and if you have Smart Guides activated, it'll kind of let you know where the line is so you don't have to try and figure it out. So I'm just gonna draw a rectangle, I'm gonna select everything, come back to my Pathfinder, click divide, and now I need to ungroup because whenever you divide anything, it automatically groups those items. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G on a PC to ungroup, select the piece that you don't want anymore, and delete it. Now I've got two pieces right here. That's exactly what I want. And I'll color them two different colors so we can keep them straight. Okay, so I'm going to place the first texture. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did in the first example. We're just going to put the texture in completely. We don't need any extra color behind it. It's going to fill the entire shape, so we don't need anything like we did in the second example. So this texture over here is actually one of the free ones that I'm giving away, and it's a really good one. So it's number 5. I'm going to go File, Place, number 5. Let me zoom out. Scale it down and rotate it the way I want it. I'm going to send it to the back, make sure the color, it's filled with color. And then I'm going to select the shape, hold Shift, select the texture, right click, make clipping mask, and now it's totally filled with that texture, and that looks really cool. So this other texture is number 4, so I'm going to do the exact same thing again. Choose number 4, place. Let me zoom out so I can scale it down again. Zoom back in. Rotate it the way I want it. Send it to the back. Select the shape, hold Shift, select the texture, right click, make clipping mask. There we go. If I don't like I like the variation in color that I'm getting over here more than over here, so I'm gonna hit A on my keyboard, click, and then hit V on my keyboard, and then I can move it around, and that looks much better. Okay, on to the next one. This one we're gonna cut up in 3 shapes instead of 2, so it's a little different, but not too bad. Let me recolor this so it's easier to see. I'm gonna grab my pen tool by hitting P on my keyboard, and I'm just gonna draw like any old shape right here. So it doesn't really mean anything, but it could be whatever you want it to be. If you have a graphic that you really like, that you'd like on a surfboard, definitely bring that vector shape in. So now I've got just one shape right here. I'm going to select everything because I need to get rid of these edges. I'm going to come over to my Pathfinder, hit the divide, and then Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G on a PC, and I'm just going to delete these pieces. And I'll color these 3 pieces differently so you can see that there's 3 pieces here. And as you can see, these are kind of colored where it transitions within the streaks. So I started out really dark and then I ended up a lot lighter. So I'm going to bring in this texture, which is number 30. Number 30, place, scale it down once again. And then I'm going to send it to the back, and I want it to be angled kind of at the same angle that I drew that shape. So that looks good, and now I want to make sure that I've got a little bit of blue so it looks like a really smooth transition between the shapes. Let me scale it just a little bit more. All right, that's looking good. So now I'm going to select the shape that I want it to mask into, and then hold Shift, and then select the texture, right click, make clipping mask. There we go. That looks really cool. So I like this one even better than this one. All right, so the last one is a little more complex, but it's only more complex in that this one only has one shape that we're masking it into, whereas this one has 3 shapes, but they're acting as one shape because the texture continues on through these additional shapes, even though they're not connected to the main shape. So I'll explain how all that works, but I'm gonna copy this one and bring it over. I'll recolor it so we're all on the same page. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw just totally freehanding with the pen tool. So let's see, and do a drip. It's kind of at an angle, make it straighter. Let me make it another color too so it's easier to see. Kind of looks like a big tooth. All right, let me just draw 2 little drips, water splashes. Okay, so obviously I need to get rid of this extra piece up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just select my big tooth shape and then hold shift and select the shape of the surfboard. Come to my Pathfinder, hit the divide button, and then go Command Shift G or Control Shift G on a PC and delete that extra piece. All right, this is looking really ugly. That's better. Okay, so now I need all of these light blue shapes. I need them to act like one shape instead of 3 shapes. So first I'm going to group them all together. So I'm going to hold shift and select them all, and then I'm going to hit Command G or Control G on a PC. Now we have a group of shapes. We need to make a compound path out of these so they act like one shape, because if I didn't make a compound path and I masked the texture inside of this, it would only mask inside of one shape instead of all 3. So in order to make a compound path, all you have to do is hit Command 8, the number 8 on your keyboard, or Control 8 if you're on a PC. So I'm just going to do that now, and now it doesn't look any different, but now it's a compound path. Okay. So I'm going to bring in this texture, which is number 2, File, Place, number 2, scale it down once again, scaled it a little too much. I'm always holding shift when I scale. I'm going to send this to the back, and then I'm going to re-angle it so it kind of flows with my little water drips. Okay. So I'm going to select the shape, and obviously it's grouped and it's a compound path now, so they'll all become selected when I click on them. Then I'm going to hold shift, select my texture, right click, make clipping mask. And there you go. And let me delete my little extras, and there we go. We've got a whole set of cute little surfboards in Illustrator. So that's how you make a paint streak textured surfboard in Illustrator. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe. I release a new tutorial every single Tuesday. And you can also, don't forget to head on over to my blog, every-tuesday.com, to pick up your free 2 paint streak textures, and you can also check out the whole pack there as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.